Welcome, everybody, to the October 27th meeting of the Brevard County Tourist Development Council. Welcome introductions. Tom Hermanson, Ocean Partners.
Andrea Young, West Melbourne City Council.
Julie Braga, residence in Melbourne.
Keith Winston, Brevard Zoo.
Christine Shabarick with the County Attorney's Office.
Rob Medina, by now you know, mayor of the greatest city on the face of the earth.
Peter Cranis with Tourism Development Office.
Candace Normore, TDO.
Brian Blanchard, TDO.
Charity Stewart, TDO.
Deborah Webster, TDO.
Mike McGarry, Brevard Natural Resources.
Kathy Najaran, Brevard Cultural Alliance.
John Belden, 321 Lift Off Podcast, Space Coast on Guide, Belden Communications.
Wayne Belden, ditto.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like we have the usual suspects. Same crew. We are needing a vote to allow by rules to allow Commissioner Lober.
I so move.
Thank you. We
Second.
have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. You are permitted into the meeting, Commissioner Lober. And we have an aye.
Thank you so much.
Oh, that's a great costume.
That's what
What costume? I don't know what everything might mean.
I had a point of inquiry. Does Commissioner Lober know what filter he has on for his?
I'm not sure what that is.
I can find out, and I will email you accordingly.
Great. Next, we ask any board member to disclose a conflict of interest with any items on the agenda today. Do we hear any conflicts for Christine to consider? Hearing none, we'd like a review and approval of the minutes of our thrilling September 22nd meeting. Any comments to those minutes? Very thoroughly prepared.
Hey, Brian.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve from Andrea Young. Second from Keith Winston. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Who's the caller voting? Hearing none, those motion to pass the minutes is passed. Director's report. We do have some echo on the phone. If anybody has their computer and phone on at the same time, we'd ask that you mute your computer speakers.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Say a couple of things. So in here is the August TDT report, but I just as an update, I'm doing a projection right now of somewhere between 1.1 and 1.2 million for September, which will be the final month of our fiscal year. It would put us at about 16.7 million in TDT, which is the best year we've ever had. So congratulations to everybody on that. Quite an accomplishment given the prior year. You know, when you think about where we've been and what we've been through, that rebound is quite incredible. I was 2 weeks ago, I was at the Destinations Florida conference, which that's all the Florida destinations get together a couple times a year, and it was interesting to hear around the room about 50 different destinations attended that, and what they're seeing, what they were seeing over the summer. Most of them had very good summers. There's a bit of caution as we go into next year. I think as they've done their budgeting just like we have and tried to be somewhat conservative, there's a concern that there might be a bit of a pullback. But if you read my article in our newsletter next week, you'll see my projections. I'm still very bullish on 22, and there's a number of reasons. I mean, when you think about it, that 16.7 million, that was for the most part, without cruising happening. It was with Orlando mostly, still languishing, not having a really strong summer. They had a rough year. And those are two sources that we pull from. Space and beach really maintained us and obviously continue to be the center of our marketing and promotions, and with good reason. But I think once we start to see some of these other sectors, the other thing I like about next year is Easter falls a little bit later. It's in mid-April, which that always helps. Every year when you see Easter into April, it always helps kind of extend that spring break season, and I think that'll be the same for us. So I think we'll have a good spring, and my biggest worry is really the economy, but the way I look at it, if the economy shifts, we're in an inflationary mode right now. For some reason, there's a pullback or it shifts. It affects everybody. It's not just us. So we'll be in the same boat as everyone. And I think frankly, our numbers and our local economy is probably a bit more resilient than a lot of other beach destinations that are very heavily dependent on tourism. I think we have a nice mix of business and leisure travel here, so I think we'll weather any storm well comparatively. But right now, I see us continuing to have an upward trend on TDT. On STR, just a couple of things to note. We've added 18% new hotel inventory since the beginning of 2020. That's about 1,500, 1,600 more hotel rooms. There's probably another 1,500 to 1,600 rooms to come in the next 2 years. So, you're going to see basically almost a 40% increase in hotel inventory over a 4-year period, which is pretty incredible. Going around the room again at the Destinations Florida, there were not too many other destinations that had that kind of inventory growth as we've had. So we kind of stand out in that category. And that, I think there's a couple of things that does. One, obviously, it puts a little bit of downward pressure on occupancy, because trying to keep up with occupancy when you're expanding your inventory obviously creates some challenges. But I think we've done a relatively good job of that this year. So I think that'll, keep going. ADR seems to be strong. So, I think with inflation, I do think ADR will probably hold, because you've got a lot of expenses coming into the hotels, including personnel costs, which I know Julie and Tom can probably share their stories about, staffing, and Mr. Bogger, who's unfortunately was not feeling well today, couldn't make it. But having that, I think that will cause hotels to try to keep their ADR as high as they possibly can, relative to all other things being equal, just so they can try to keep pace with their expense side. See what else I wanted to say about that. Yes, sir.
Can you touch on why the other Florida TDOs are concerned about attendance drop?
Sure. I think the fact that, when you think about Orlando and what Orlando does to both coasts and beaches on both coasts, when people aren't going to theme parks, or for that matter are not sailing on cruise ships, what do? Well, they go, they went to other beach destinations, including ours, but, probably disproportionately some of the other competitors that you think about, Jacksonville or even Clearwater, probably got a bigger share of business than what they normally would have. So when they see business then looking at next year, thinking that it might return more to normal, that could be potentially pulling rooms out of their location. And that, for us, that doesn't hurt us as much, because we actually gain from that. Yeah. So it's an interesting, scenario when you talk to others like that. The other thing is, you think about international borders opening up, and while for us, I think that's a positive, because I think now we're going to be getting international visitors that we haven't been getting. For those markets, a lot of people, when you think about Naples, for instance, a lot of those people travel all over the world. And so, instead of going to Naples, maybe they'll go to Canada or to Europe or some other, so that might eat into some of their business. So it's those kinds of things that, all the things that I think impact them in a negative way, I think we either hold our own or actually gain from, so it's a nice scenario for us. I think that was all I had. Just on a final budget note, congrats to the team. We, on the marketing side, we landed with, I think, within about $3,500 of our budget, which is pretty incredible on a $5.4 million budget, or wherever we landed finally when we added the carry forward in there. So nice job of managing that budget, which was obviously in flux last year, as it will be next year, because we get these carry forward funds and then you have to figure out how to allocate them appropriately, but then not overspend it. So I think we did a good job of managing that, but all the other budgets look good. We'll have a final, the actual finance department has now closed everything, but now they'll kind of post things. So if there's anything that needs to be retroactively posted, they'll do all that, and we'll get a true up of that next month. But I think we're in really good shape from a budgetary perspective as we go into this next fiscal. And then there wasn't a lot happening this month in October. A lot of those invoices that start hitting us from media and some of the bigger invoices, those don't come until November, December. So I think good shape fiscally. And that was it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Peter, for your report. Next, we have the Marketing Committee report. In Bob's absence, we'll hand it over to Charity.
Sounds good, thank you. So we've not had a marketing committee meeting since the last TDC update, so I wanted to go ahead and give a few updates on some things that are going on this fall, and also on our cruising efforts for the remainder of this year and into next year. Sorry. That's okay. So to start with, as cruise is picking up steam, no pun intended.
Or liquid natural gas.
Yeah. We've been placing our media to match that frequency, and that will go into then 22 as we look to continue to layer and add in the cruise messaging. And one of the things that's important to note is we talk a lot about Port Canaveral and cruising out of Port Canaveral, but the landing pages and the website where these ads all drive to all focus on reasons to stay here before or after you do that. So yes, it is important for us to really remind people that Port Canaveral is, in our opinion, the best port to travel out of, but also that the most relaxing way to do it is to stay here at the beach, be the first on board, especially right now with some of the new embarkation guidelines. So if you will click for me, Brian, please. So May through October, just a quick recap of the ad placements we've been doing. So we're running in multiple different areas. So search, our programmatic display, which also includes video, YouTube, Facebook, and also TV and streaming. And so with that, we're reaching different types of cruise folks. One is interest-based, so people who are engaging with cruising type content. We're also looking at behavior-based. Maybe you've clicked on an ad related to cruising, and so we say, what things do you have in common, and where can we go find other people who look like you that might also be interested in that cruising? And then some of our partners also have cruise-based data that we can use to target. So we're looking to layer in multiple different ways how we reach these people who we think are going to be cruisers, and talk to them about, again, coming here, cruising out of here, and staying here. For the May through October campaign, that looks like about 4.5 million digital ad and video impressions, and about 4.76 TV and streaming impressions. So going into 22, obviously, we're looking to grow those numbers and continue to make a large presence known about the port. And that resulted in about 30,000 website clicks. And then when we get into our website, we're also going to show you we've been doing additional cruise-based content that has drawn additional traffic outside of this. So on our owned channels, so those channels that we create and control, We've been doing targeted email marketing to our list about cruising. We've recently updated on our website all of our Snooze and Cruise blogs. So we've tried to do a better job of categorizing if you're traveling with a family or if you're traveling with a friend. These are the types of activities, itineraries that we suggest that you look at and consider as an add-on to your trip, and then emailing those blogs and content out to our email list. And that has increased our website views to cruise content about 20,000 visits this year. So we're starting to see people engaging with that content who last year, there just wasn't as much traction on those pages, but now they're coming to those pages, they're consuming that content. We're also working very closely and making sure that the information that we provide people on how to cruise is very clear and easy to understand with the new policies and procedures. We have also taken that onto our social media, and I'll tell you, it's been interesting to watch. We could kind of gauge where people were thinking about cruise specifically. Every time we posted a picture of a cruise ship, for a while, a lot of the comments were super negative, very, why would you be talking about this? And in just the last few months now, when we post those cruise messages, now it's people who are really excited about it. They can't wait. They've planned their trip. Lots of talk about the Mardi Gras. So you can really see the shift in the consumers' discussions and their mindset as we make those posts. So we have increased our social content surrounding cruising itineraries as well. One other thing that's been a unique benefit this year is our ability to connect with travel agents through virtual webinars. And so Tom Bartusek has been doing a great deal of agent outreach and education this year. And so far, we've contacted and educated in some way just over 6,000 agents. That includes international agents. And so that's trainings. We've put a training video of our own up on our website. We've conducted webinars in partnership with Visit Florida and other travel and cruise companies. We've been doing, we have started doing conferences. Some of the hotels are going with us to those, and we're meeting one-on-one with agents at that time. We've had some inquiries come in for cruise-related FAMs that are in progress for planning for next year. So it's nice to see that the agents are coming back and looking to us to host other agents and educate them on our area. And we're also starting an agent newsletter. So much like our weekly update to our industry partners, we're looking to do the same to agents and giving them the updated information that they need to help their clients book that experience here. And then lastly, so we create a lot of content for our website and things we push out, but we're also looking to work with specific content providers, cruise blogs, travel blogs, where we can, for a price, pay, create content that we put out there and then possibly use it for things like lead generation or do sweeps, but really help engage in the conversation with those folks and control the message. What's really great about those websites, most of them talk about Port Canaveral already, and we have a lot of presence on them, but going the route of adding some custom content, we can really amplify that message and tell them what we want them to know about why it's great to stay here before or after your cruise. And then the third prong to that is our earned media. So this year, a lot of our media pitches as we were talking to about cruise was really the impact of the lack of cruising, the business of the cruise industry, what would return to cruise look like, and we had a great deal of interviews and story coverage, but this year we'd really like to focus on instead again, those, what's it like to cruise from here? Why should you stay? How do you make it a vacation? And so we've been working with our PR firm to make a pitch list of media that we'd like to talk with. This does also include trade, which is something we haven't focused on a great deal in the past as far as media pitches. And then we're also going to take our influencer efforts that we do for some of our kind of family and leisure travel over into the cruise space. So we've identified a set of cruise influencers online These are folks who, generally speaking, live their lives on cruise ships and love to talk about it and have gained a following for being people that you ask questions to if you're getting ready to go on a cruise. And so we've started engaging with a few of them on what it might be like to do a Snooze and Cruise social media campaign with them, having them here in market, hosting them like we would a fan before they go on their cruise experience, and then talking to their fans and followers about it. So a lot of neat things that we haven't had a chance to do over the last year and a half that we'll now be able to look at doing for next year. So
Quick question, how
Yes.
does that work? I've never worked with an influencer.
So
My own
You are.
influencer.
You are an influencer in your own right.
So it looks like we look for what are the type of people that we want to engage with. In this particular case, it's somebody who is knowledgeable in the cruise industry, and we start evaluating what type of content do they put out. Is it family friendly, brand friendly? Are they people who have a lot of engagement? So do they just post pictures of themselves and nobody ever asks them questions, or do they talk and educate about, their experiencing they're having, and then when people ask them questions, they actually go in and respond. And so we're looking for quality, and we assess them based on that quality in order to select them. And then we engage with them much like we do any other media, basically. This is what we're looking to do. These are our goals. This is how many days we'd like to have you, and they submit a price to us. This is what we can provide, whether it's number of social posts, blog posts, if they have an email network, and we negotiate dates and times. And then we track afterwards. What did that engagement look like? Did they send us clicks over to the website? Did we see a growth in our followers because of that? So we look at different metrics depending on who we're working with. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Here, I also had a question for you.
Yeah.
Trying to increase the length of stay prior or after cruises.
Yes.
I'm assuming there's data out there on who's been successful at doing that. And can you be successful? I don't know the cruise market well enough. I mean, I'm asking the question, do we have data that says, yes, focused marketing attempts can get them to stay? Or are we hoping they can, where we might be sort of battling uphill? I just don't know anything about it.
So the data points for cruising are a little different depending on the situation. What we do know for sure is there is a market of people who do come in early and stay at a hotel. We also know that a great deal of those often stay in Orlando and then shuttle over here. And so the goal is to convert some of them into, staying here. It's not uncommon for cruises to sell city add-ons on each side of their, as part of their package as well to their consumer. So there is a segment of the market that does already sell that, which is part of the reason we spend so much time educating our agents. Cruising data is something that
So cruising
on our
data is
list.
something that I've been trying to get my, hands on since day one.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, and there's not a lot of sources. I'm coming to the conclusion that we're pretty much going to have to do some primary research around it. We've done some research in the past on what cruisers look like when they do stay, what they spend when they're here. So we have some spending data, but what I want to get to is ultimately, did they see an ad that we ran, and then did they stay here as a result, or did they, at least can we track them through as having stayed in a hotel in Brevard, as well as maybe taking the cruise. And there's two sources of data that we, I think, are going to be able to get that from. One is Adara, which is Adara allows us to put tags on all our digital advertising, and then we can see what people did as a result of that. So that's one area. And then the other is we just signed an agreement with a new cellular device tracking company called Intermix. And we're just beginning to dig into what their capabilities are, but one of the things that they will be able to look at is the port. We'll be able to kind of draw a ring around the port and look at how many people come through there, and then they should be able to say, if those people went to the port, did they also stay overnight somewhere in the area? And that'll give us some really good data to get to. So there's a couple of opportunities there. We're just working through how we get to it, but to my knowledge, no other destination. I mean, Lauderdale, Miami, and Tampa are the three other big competitive port markets, and to my knowledge, they haven't really done anything to this scale. So,
Because my concern, I think you answered it. I think you answered, we know there are people staying in Orlando, so there's a market to bring over here.
definitely.
My
Yeah.
concern would be if we put a lot of effort in, only to find out that cruisers just 99% never want to stay. The whole focus is the cruise, and there's no way to move them. But you've identified an audience that we already could move. So,
And I think I think the low hanging fruit is the night before, because most of them fly in the day before. They can't fly in, on a Saturday morning most of the time. They have to fly in on a Friday night or a Saturday night if they're cruising out Saturday or Sunday. So, we've talked to a lot of travel agents about this, because most cruising is still booked through travel agents, and that's exactly what they say as well. A lot of times my client just wants to stay at the airport, then get up in the morning and drive over. And so we have, I think, a very unique selling proposition of, hey, you can come over, stay on the beach, have a dinner, take a walk on the beach, get up in the morning, and you don't have to rush to get to the port. I mean, I think we have a great story to tell as just getting in front of them. So that's the low-hanging fruit. I think the longer-term play is how do we extend those stays, so when they come, cruisers are repeaters. They tend to take cruises every year or two, and I think trying to create that habit of, hey, why don't you stay a couple of days afterwards, decompress, hang out at the beach, really enjoy our area. And I think the best way to do that is to show them the product and have them experience it once, and then then you got to kind of get them for life.
The former is very reliable, one day before, maybe the night after. I'm not sure, and I don't know by any means my sense is most cruisers are not going to extend.
It's a harder
They spend their
sell.
time on the cruise, and
Yeah.
that's probably the ROI isn't there, but for the night before or the night after, it is there. So,
You get off that ship and you're broke and sunburned.
Exactly, and you go home.
Got to get back
Right,
up
and
on
you go home.
95
You
and
got to
get
go home to reality, right? You're not
back
going
to Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's before. 9/11 did wonders for pre-cruise lodging because of the security constraints and the fact that they're always understaffed at customs, at the port.
Oh,
And
wow.
now, frankly, there's a cruise schedule that the ports released. Actually, I think it came off of a website somebody shared with me a week ago that shows, the most home-ported ships we had previously was 7. And we're going to be at 9, I think, in February, 11 through the year, and 14 in December of '22. And
good
so
for
you're
your
going to have a
business.
lot more people, but that also means a lot more logistical challenges at the port, more stricter time constraints with when people can go to the terminals and get on the ships, and it's probably going to push people again to stay and hopefully stay closer to the port than they have previously.
That's great.
And the influencers would go a long way to educating the public.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. All right, that is all I had on cruise, and then I just had a couple of other quick fall updates for you guys. So one of the things we're doing on social this fall is for foodies. We know that people love to travel for food, and the Space Coast is full of amazing dining options. And so we're dedicating a lot of our social space this fall to educating our drive market, our couple hours, great for weekend getaways audience on coming here for those food experiences. And so this looks like a couple of different things, but ultimately it's a combination of engagement based. So every week we put a post up on our social asking a question. We're working towards building the ultimate Space Coast foodie list. And in that engagement, one of the things we talk a lot about is time with the brand, right? We've seen over the last 3 weeks hundreds and hundreds of comments of people tagging their friends saying, we need to go do this. And that's the type of engagement we're looking at. We need to go try this. We posted a Bloody Mary picture from Time Out the other day, their ultimate Bloody Mary. It has been shared 140, 150 times. It had 60,000 impressions the other day and a couple hundred comments. But it just goes to show that people are excited about these things. And in the comments, we can start to see like, oh yeah, let's plan a trip and go do that this weekend. So
If you've never seen it, by the way, it's something to behold.
it is. It really is. We're also then running paid social ads that drive visitors back again to our website, where we have the food-based content, the food-based events that are going on this fall, and also some food itineraries. Going to the influencers, we have identified 5 food bloggers / social media influencers from our Central Florida markets, so Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, St. Pete, and one from south of us, who have large food followings in their communities, and we're going to bring them here to experience our food and share that with their followers. Again, with that idea that if you're within 2 hours, you've got this audience of people who love food, it's a quick drive up for the weekend. And so we're putting together like 36-hour itineraries for them, and these visits will happen almost every other week throughout the fall. We've been doing targeted emails, and then we're also doing media pitches with some of our food. Seafood Month is this month, so we've been pitching rock shrimp, which the media really likes to get involved with. We've also had some requests for like fall-themed cocktails. So we're really focusing on Fall is for Foodies. If you guys are going out to eat and you see cool dishes, if you want to take a picture, hashtag it with Space Coast, we will pull it over and use it as part of our ultimate list. So that's one fun thing that's happening this fall on social. Discovery has a new show premiering in January. It's called Are We There Yet? The premise is about experiencing the great state parks and national parks throughout the United States with an RV. They filmed an entire episode here last week, and they've done everything. They were out at Jetty Park and the beach, the cruise ships, a launch. They were out at KSC, Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. They did Twister Airboat. So the whole episode will be Space Coast dedicated. And it just so happened that the park that they were going to drive to that day got rained out. And so, we became the park destination as well. They love the experience so much they would like to do another one next year. So as that airing schedule comes out, I will keep you guys posted on that. And then lastly, we've had, again, some great media pickups, but this one in particular I thought was great to share. Today.com did an article last week, 19 family vacations your teenager will love. And the Space Coast was on there as well. So we were in great company, but I loved that it was the teenagers, because we all know how picky sometimes that group can be. So it was a great pickup on Today for us. So those are my updates. Any questions?
Great updates. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome.
Next committee report is capital facilities.
Yeah, unfortunately, Giles was unable to make it, but we didn't have any capital facilities activity this past month, so the season will gear back up again as we get into the new year, and we'll have I don't know exactly what that number will be, but it looks like we will have some ability to fund some capital projects out of the facilities budget. Quick update on Lori Wilson, though. With November 1st now being the end of turtle season, they've already begun fencing off areas to begin work on the boardwalk. They've got a very tight 4-month window between November 1st and March 1st to work to complete that project. They're doing 2 crossovers on the north side, and then not only 2 crossovers on the south side, but the entire boardwalk that runs parallel to the beach, and that's a lot of wood. It's a lot of labor. They're going to have, I think, 2 crews working pretty long days to try to get that done. And then also both bathrooms will be completely replaced. It looks now like it's going to be closer to February before that project gets wrapped up. I was hoping to get it done this year, but getting labor and parts and all of that have been, as everybody knows, and are tired of hearing words like supply chain delays, but that's what we are facing. So, but we will get there, and so our hope is by spring and certainly into our summer season next year, we'll have the boardwalk all done, the bathrooms all done. But if you haven't been out there, just a plug for the crew that was working on the hammock boardwalk. They completed not only the north-south connector, but they've now completed a section that runs right into the middle of the hammock. So there's actually quite a bit of boardwalk now that's new there. It is ADA compliant, so you could actually go out there if you were if you had a wheelchair. There are benches out there, seating areas. So if you haven't been out there and seen that part of it, that's open now and available. We'd like to do in another section of the boardwalk hammock, but we were getting funding from Career Source that was paying for the crew through federal funds. That ended, unfortunately, that federal program ended. So we're seeking, right now, we're seeking an EDA grant, which if that comes through, EDA is a federal bureau, and that's part of the ARPA funding. If we get that, then we'll be able to complete that project as well as actually a couple of other projects out there. So good things happening.
Couple of questions.
Yeah.
Any advancement on the cleanup of the north side of the park that we let overgrow? We were discussing potentially having volleyball courts there.
Right, it is. That's on the radar. That's one of the projects that I think. So with the $1 million that was received for the from the Capital Facilities Committee for this coming year, a bulk of that is going to go to finishing the boardwalk. However, we have a contingency built into that I think will allow us to clear that and add volleyball courts. Whether we add them right there or not, we might actually save that area for possible parking, because we do need to expand the parking there. It always gets full during peak season, but there's other space where we could potentially put volleyball. So those two projects, volleyball courts and clearing of that brush for down the road, eventual paving for parking are on the list of things, and I think we'll get to that with that $1 million. If not, then the EDA grant is also an option that we could use some of those funds for that as well. So there's a couple of possibilities there.
And then the invasive cleanups in the bird sanctuary?
Yeah, so, and actually, Keith and I have been having conversations. There's two pieces of that, of the hammock that we want to fix. We want to kind of either reimagine, recreate, construct the water area there for birds to come in and have that aspect, and then we want to try to get the invasives, and so we've had some conversations about it, but we don't have exact plans yet. But it's also on the list of things we want to do.
And, we talked about the fact that if there's some funding for plantings and really planting design, because we need to get a wildlife ecologist to talk about what we want to put in there, and also a water feature. I think the zoo could get volunteers to do a lot of the actual work. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I mean, if we just have to pay for like the plants and the whatever materials are needed, and we could get the labor's probably your biggest cost in that.
And I think we could get the volunteers for it.
Could get some zoo marketing there.
So
beautified Brevard Zoo.
It's all good.
And then hopefully we won't forget the fence on A1A.
Yes, in fact, I reached out to the facilities department about that and asked their opinion about what kind of fencing would they envision, and I haven't gotten any estimates yet, but yes, that's also on the list.
I'm buying fence right now. It's horribly expensive. Price just went up 18%
Can we add to your
last week.
purchase and just?
I'm getting about 3,000 feet of it, but that fence just looks horrible. Maybe even some signage. Thank you very much for that update. Any other questions on capital facilities? If not, we'll move to beach improvement. Julie.
Thank you. We had a really great meeting on October 13th. We had a presentation from Dr. Todd Osborne as to what he'd been successful in completing with some of the grant money that was awarded and continuing. We also had a great update from Mike about the beach, and the committee had an opportunity to review the 50-year beach plan. So we spent the year going over the IRL grants and spent a lot of time going over those grants. So it was our last meeting of the year, spent some time talking about the beach and the 50-year plan, and it was a really great discussion and a great overview as to how that document is living and breathing, and it changes continuously. And so the Dream Team had a wonderful meeting. It was a great committee, and they're looking forward to serving again, most of them.
And if I might just jump in on the beach plan itself, and when the timing of when that would potentially come here to the TDC to review, we still don't have, obviously until September numbers are finalized, and then the budget office has a chance to look at all the final carry forward numbers and authenticate them. We don't have what that carry forward is going to be, but I'm estimating it's going to be probably about $1.4 million. So when we get that number, we'll plug it into the plan. If we get any updates relative to where TDT is going for this coming year, then I can plug those in, and then we'll bring it back to beach and then back here. But that's probably the February-ish, maybe March, February-March time period. But that would be the time when this committee could then, vote on how to handle those carry forward funds and make that recommendation to the board. But, $1.4 million will go a long way. It will get us, I think, certainly 2 or 3 more years in the black beyond where we are today. The other thing that I was looking at was, what's the trajectory for TDT over the next 5 years? In that plan, it has very conservative numbers plugged into it with about a 4% escalator. I think over the next 5 years, we're going to grow significantly more than 4%. So obviously, every time you add more TDT to those numbers, that puts more years in the black and puts us in a better position. So, I do think we're going to be in pretty good shape in that area. The question is always, what's the right number for reserves? Mike and I have had a number of discussions about that, and, is it 5 million, 10 million, 15 million? You always want more than what's realistically possible. I think if we had at least 5 million in there, I think that would make us feel pretty good about it. We've got 6 right now, and so if we add the 1.4, that'll get us over 7, close to 7.5. Some of that will get drawn down in the next 5 to 6 years. But I think if we have somewhere between 5 and 6, 7 million, I think that's a good place to target. We'll just have to see. But I think what I had heard, unfortunately I was not able to be at that committee meeting because I was at the Destinations Florida conference. But what I think is a good takeaway from that is it's a continual process of watching it, adjusting, change the numbers as you get new numbers in. And so maybe what we should do is every 6 months do a formal look at that plan, bring it to the committee and to the TDC for a look-see, and then, go from there. Because I think about every 6 months we get some significantly new numbers that could impact the future. And then the one area that I think down the road could be, certainly looked at as a way to potentially adjust is the grant program. It's $1 million a year, so obviously it has the single largest, other than the beach projects themselves, it's the single largest impact to that budget on the deficit side. So, taking a look at the expenses there and then also looking at the revenue every 6 months, I think will be good. But like I said, I think we'll have a really good handle on the carry forward around February, March, and then maybe we'll have a look at what TDT is doing this year, and then we can start putting some numbers in for going forward. But I think the committee felt pretty good about where we were right now, and just wanted to wait until we get some actuals before they brought it here for a vote.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Lober, unfortunately, I haven't been making the commission meetings. Any discussions at the commission level about coming some way to make the beach fund whole with some of those CARES Act funds?
We haven't had any discussion, any significant discussion about the second tranche of ARPA funds at the commission level. What I'll tell you, though, is I think it's more likely to have a degree of success if it comes as a staff recommendation. I've talked to Frank Abate about it. I'm still hopeful that it'll be a staff recommendation, either for specific dollar amount or at least in concept to say to allocate a portion of it toward beefing up the reserves. So I think we're kind of on a hold now until we get a little closer to actually getting that money.
Yeah, I appreciate the update. I thought we had a good discussion at the last meeting, you know, and there's the other side of the coin that, that Peter just pointed out there. It's the IRL funding coming out of the Beach Renourishment Fund when the Beach Renourishment is showing deficits in the near term. And maybe another part of that discussion, if we're not successful in the primary vein, is to relieve the beach fund of some of those IRL grant demands because of the reserves that are in the IRL fund itself. Is that something that might be on an agenda item potentially soon?
I don't want to say soon. It just depends on when that money is set to come in. What I'll say, though, is with respect toward pulling it out, I think you may have support for pulling it out if we can identify an alternate funding source. But I don't feel that there's anything holy about saying it has to come out of a particular source. So, for instance, beach renourishment, I don't know that it needs to come out of there. As long as the money is being allocated toward the cause, I'm not remotely opposed to taking it and leaving it alone as far as the beach renourishment dollars are concerned.
Okay, thank you. Sports Committee, Keith.
Yeah, we have not had a meeting since we last met. Nothing to report.
Well, I thought you were going to come with something exciting here.
Do you want me to make something up?
There was
Let's see.
There was a lot of buildup earlier.
Yeah. No, I don't really have anything new for sports.
A little disappointing.
We completed our work for the year.
That's great.
Well, I'm going to ask Peter, I know we put aside funds to identify potential large projects. Are there any that we're currently looking into?
Yeah, well, actually, two things. Cycle 2 sports grants that were approved by this committee will go to the board at some point. We're trying to identify when is the right meeting to bring them, but we're good for, as long as we do it this year, I think we're fine, because most of those events don't happen till after, I believe, from starting in March, because it's the second half of the year. So we're in good shape there. Yeah, Erin Stranko is our sports commissioner. She is actually going to a sports conference where they're going to be engaging with a lot of producers of sporting events, and I think that's going to be a good opportunity for her to talk to some of them about what we have to offer in our community in terms of infrastructure, and try to woo a couple of events here. So that's the goal for the $50,000, is to find 1, 2, 3 new events that we can attract here. We're still tracking on trying to have an esports symposium. We were originally going to do it this fall at FIT, at their new Florida Tech, at their new esports center. Unfortunately, they still have pretty strict COVID guidelines, and they're not allowing groups larger than 5 or 6 to aggregate there. That from people coming from off campus.
That conference should be virtual anyway.
It could be, yes. And we could play games while we're doing it, yes. But with our move to our new office, we will actually have space in that facility in our new offices, thanks to the way we're going to set that up to actually have committee meetings. So we may be able to have that event hosted at our location. And then the question is just the timing, whether we want to do it in December. Our move-in date is December 6th, so I don't know if we want to do it in December or just wait to the new year and do it then. But I think having the people that are engaged in esports around the county, I think that's going to be valuable, because that will begin to sort of help us identify where opportunities are, where gaps are in maybe some of the scheduling, and then hopefully they would have some targets that we could go after with some of those funds as well. So I think esports is to me, that's one big piece of that 50,000 is we should try to have at least one esports event hosted here and try to use that funding to engage with them. But
Can you explain what esports is?
sure, it's anything from think about gaming tournaments. That's the number one, that's the biggest thing. So that's where, if you've ever just been flipping through your TV and you see a arena with a crowd of people, watching people actually play video games.
Okay.
Believe it or not, people will fill arenas to do that if it's the right, the right gaming folks. There are international teams that do this, millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in prizes. It's an incredible business now. It's sort of, I would say it's relatively bypassed us in this county. I think you see it in, certainly in Asia and other large markets out in the West Coast of the U.S. You see them happening, but I think a smaller scale event, we certainly can do that. And as I said, Florida Tech has now got a team and a facility where they're going to be playing intercollegiate gaming along those lines, and you can actually major in it. It's a college major, and you can get very good scholarships for it. So if you have kids who are sitting there doing nothing but gaming, maybe that you should push them towards figuring out that.
I know someone who got a scholarship for it.
And the other aspects are things like you also see drone racing. That's not done quite in the same way. Often that's done at airports and hangars. Airport hangars have often been a venue for that, and there have been a couple of drone races that have been held here in the county. One down at Valkyria not too long ago. I think at some point last year they had it, and so that's another option, but that doesn't draw quite as many people as the gaming does. So.
Hope those kids are getting outside and getting some sun too. Between games. Thank you. Cultural Committee. Ms.
Thank
Young.
you. Yes, I don't have a lot to say. We have two grant applications, and we had two wonderful presentations from them both. So the committee is busy scoring them, and the application scoring results are due to back to Deborah by Friday. Our next meeting is November 4th, and that's when we'll know how they ranked, and then I'll have that to bring back to this board. That's pretty much all I have as a
So
report.
just two applications, are they off-cycle, or, because normally you have 20 applications?
Well, this is for the special events. so
Special
they have
events,
to be the
okay.
big guys.
Major events.
Major
Yeah.
events, yes.
Melbourne
Major
Air
events.
Show is not doing a show.
They're not planning on doing a show in '23, nor is Cocoa Beach. The two applicants were the Valiant Air Command show and Thunder on the Beach,
Thunder on the Beach, yeah.
boat
Great.
races.
Yep.
Neither of the other air shows. That's very interesting.
Well, the Cocoa Beach Air Show conflicted time, schedule-wise with a boat race. They could only do it on one weekend, so unfortunately, the air show, or maybe not unfortunately, is going to Titusville on the same weekend in May.
Correct,
Yes,
yeah.
same weekend.
before Memorial Day weekend.
So it's going to be a busy weekend. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. We will jump to committee reports or commissioner member reports. Commissioner Lober.
Sure, I'll try to keep it brief, partly because I've been out for a couple days sick, and I want to preserve what's left of my voice here. So with that said, as far as the air show is concerned, I have just a brief comment on that. The original idea is contemplated when the discussions were taking place between Brian Lilly and the folks with Valiant Air Command was to alternate year for year, so that one year we'd have the Cocoa Beach Air Show, the following year we'd have the Valiant Air Command Air Show up at Tyco, at least at the Titusville Airport, so that they wouldn't be competing with one another. So I think it's actually good in that sense that we're not going to have cooperative groups that are, to a degree at least, drawn from a similar clientele or a similar attendance base competing with each other, especially when one of the two groups had a very hard time monetizing their event. Other than that, I just want to say My game plan moving forward, since we are having an organizational meeting next month at the commission level, is to ask not to be reappointed to TDC. I have nothing against TDC, but I think I've done what I set out to do and have been involved to the extent that I've set out to be involved up to this point. Not to say that I'm not willing to serve at some point in the future, but for next year, I'm hoping that it either will be going to Rita or Christine. So, certainly I'll still be supportive of the TDC, even not serving on it. So, for instance, whether it's the beach renourishment issues or whether it's an air show issue, certainly it's actually good in a sense because sunshine won't apply between us, since I'll no longer be on the board, or at least on this committee, I should say. It's been great working with you guys, but hopefully they will take me up on my suggestion and put either Commissioner Pritchett or Commissioner Zonka on.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Medina.
I have nothing to report, sir.
Thank you. Bob's not here. Alex, not here. Julie, anything?
Yeah, I just had one thing I wanted to bring before the committee. I know we're getting ready to start looking at putting our committee appointments for next year. And as I started to think about that, I wanted to know how I could find out if the attendance was for the committee members that I appointed. So I was just wondering if we could request for our next meeting, if staff would prepare our attendance of our committee members so that we could all review it prior to going into, I feel like we always start up in January and or February, and it goes very quickly, just so we can kind of see and have the discussions if they were engaged and active.
Candace is nodding in the corner. She will have a report
Attendance.
prepared by November.
Yeah.
Attendance, very important. You have to have a passion for this tourism stuff.
Or you don't get rehired.
Yeah, you're fired.
I can't really fire him.
Fired. We barely made a quorum today.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith?
Just a couple of the zoo announcements. Last weekend of Boo at the Zoo this weekend. If you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. The weather's supposed to be beautiful. And I believe there are still a few tickets at Jazoo left online, which is the following weekend. If you've never been to Jazoo, it is the best party you'll probably ever go to. And our New Orleans performers always tell us that. So I think there are still some tickets left, so.
Andrea?
I can compete that with, it's not the best city, but it's the best party. Mayor Medina.
So Keith, it's actually the greatest city.
Oh, man. All right, I'll work on that.
Oh, delusional. Thank you. I always love this part. I found this out shopping, Space Coastopoly. And it is very cool. It doesn't say the greatest city, but it does say Palm Bay. So it has a Palm Bay on there. It has a Brevard Zoo. It has a Cocoa Beach Pier. I thought this was very cool. I haven't opened it because I'm going to give this away as a gift, but I haven't opened it. But it's pretty doggone cool. It's out of Ohio. Late for the Sky is the name of the company, lateforthesky.com, out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I just looked it up while we were here. They also have a Treasure Coastopoly. They have the other things as well. I think we could have done it better here because for the little token pieces, we could have had a manatee, a gator, sandhill crane, turtle, and they just picked things here like a pretzel and a dog.
Looks like they're launching rockets in Palm Bay.
It does kind of.
I should have done a little research.
So this is really, really cute. So if anybody wants to look at it, I found it at Walmart. They were $19.99.
I love it.
The greatest launch complex in Brevard County, Palm Bay.
Palm Bay, yes.
Way to go, Tom.
It has Jetty
Chip.
Park. It has the King Center. It has, it even has a police station. Because they all wind up there someday.
You got to go to jail.
Manatee Sanctuary Park, Sebastian Inlet State Park. I don't know what that has to do with this. Well, it's a little south, but anyway. But this was very cool, so I thought I would bring it to show all of you.
Thank you very much. That is cool. That is good.
Cool.
You can put that on your free earned media list. Figure out how many they're selling.
Yeah, or have someone here do it our own so we can actually make it accurate and do it better and not be launching spacecraft in Palm Bay.
Yeah, I'd like to take a picture of that box.
And it's a weird-looking thing, too. It's like a combination.
I think it looks great, Mr.
It's
Chair.
the old-
Let's rock it with some
It's the old,
boosters.
it's the old-fashioned shuttle with the boosters on
It
the
doesn't
sides,
look
I
like a
think.
shuttle tail end, but
It's Robbie the Robot.
yeah, it's something.
The robot.
It's like something out of space.
All right,
Anyway.
that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't have anything to report other than we are cautiously optimistic that next year will continue to grow. Seeing some positive signs of rate acceptance, which Peter pointed to earlier. Even though the booking window is so narrow, the business that is getting picked up in January and February is at higher rates. Hopefully will offset some of the wage inflation, which has been pretty brutal in our business. But yeah, I think we're finally getting beyond the worst of it here, which the numbers show. I want to thank everybody for coming. Oh, public comment.
Yes.
Before I thank everybody for coming out, I'd like to open it up for public comment. Anybody have anything to share with us? Lobbying, pushing for something? No? No?
I would have one of those, though. There's some Bloody Mary pictures.
Oh, my.
Nice. Where is that?
Is necessary.
That is a pierogi, a slider, some wings, hard-boiled egg, a pretzel, a little veg. It's the meal
Breakfast,
of
lunch, and
I'm
dinner all in
gonna
a
make, I'm
drink.
gonna make a shameless plug for my tenants, Mark and Andrew and Nick at the Cocoa Beach Fish Camp, where you can get a chicken on a beer can. It is delicious. My kids love it. You rip it right off the can. That and the Crawdaddies appetizers are amazing.
Noted.
And you can get all sorts of great drinks there.
They also do dueling pianos.
They do. They're putting on some great shows Fridays and Saturdays. Live bands, game room at the back for the kids to keep them busy. Lots of good local brews on tap, and they're serving a special, what is it called? Bushwhackers. If anybody likes a creamy cocktail, Bushwhackers. Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the meeting. We will adjourn.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.